kind of a bunch of subjects maybe thrown into one. Oh, I don't have them indexed in here anymore. Too bad, huh? Yeah, I'll have to go to his channel page, I guess, to reference his videos. Oh dear. Oof, he's got a couple more on here that I'm probably going to really hate. But anyway, so I'll get to them, I guess, afterwards. But I wanted to get to, where's the, it's just always such a problem. Atheism versus India. Okay, let's play a little bit of this. And, I guess I would just preface by saying, there's lots of disagreement. I had a big disagreement with people about Jesus Christ and the moment where where Judas confronts him, and what the significance or meaning of Jesus' words in that circumstance were, and they have their whole story, and I have my story and my interpretation. And I would argue that I have an interpretation of the Sermon on the Mount that is completely different than what all Christians believe, essentially. I believe Jesus was being quite literal when he said, do the birds have, whatever he said, microwave ovens. He was just making the argument that nature takes care of all these things because they do not ask for more than they're entitled to. And in a sense, humans would do just fine in nature. It's where they belong. And that it is only because they have perverted their place that they have all this problem, all this strife. And so he was basically saying, screw civilization. Let's go back to being animals. They don't have to worry about mortgages and paying bills and all this other stuff. And so it is just kind of ironic in a sense that I don't think most Christians have a clue what Christianity is. And I'm saying that I probably don't think this guy has a clue of what the Hindu and Buddhist traditions are really based on. It's his interpretation, and I think it's a wrong interpretation. I think the insights of Buddhism are probably more reflected in Jainism than in Hinduism, or some other kind of expression.
The disciple asked, Om, by whose will directed does the mind proceed to its object? At whose command does the prana, the foremost, do its duty? At whose will do men utter speech? Who is the God that directs the eyes and ears? The teacher replied, it is the ear of the ear, the mind of the mind, the speech of speech, the life of life, and the eye of the eye. Having detached the self from the sense organs and renounced the world, the wise attain to immortality. The eye does not go thither, nor speech, nor the mind. We do not know it. We do not understand how anyone can teach it. It is different from the known. It is above the unknown. Thus we have heard from the preceptors of old, who taught it to us. That which cannot be expressed by speech, but by which speech is expressed, that alone know as Brahman, and not what people here worship.
Okay, so, he goes on to give his interpretation of this, which I didn't understand at all anyway. But yes, as my interpretation would be that what is being, the idea of Brahman, or the idea that this is garbage, rubbish, is the idea clearly stated in there is the senses, those who are owned by them, are rubbish, they're waste. And that what really has value is an understanding of the function, an understanding that's difficult to, you can't explain your possession of the faculty of it, but the fact is you possess it through perception, through seeing, but it's sort of an invisible strings. You're seeing the invisible strings of your psychology, essentially, of the mechanism. and recognizing that behind the mechanism is a truth of function, and that there is no function, essentially. There is no, it's just desire. It's just a maintenance of a machine motivated to do things in the world, and that's all just rubbish. And understanding is the only thing. Knowledge is nirvana, or whatever. And I would say that I would perceive consistently that really, to you wish to own life, then you will recognize that it is rubbish, and that knowledge is all that has any value. Knowledge is what makes it possible to unscrew the lid off a jar of peanut butter, which gets to Logic Rolls the Dice. He had some silly title for, I mean, it was a silly title for a video that just wasn't good enough, for the title. All behavior reduces to. And, it's almost nonsensical. All behavior would reduce to, no. You just can't do that, in a sense, because there are only two things. There's a constructed, logical path, and then there's the path dictated by your feelings, your desires. So, just say, if I didn't need to do anything, if I had no personal incentives whatsoever, you could logically deduce mission and purpose, in that once you recognize that there's this expression that takes place inside of conscious beings of suffering, you could recognize that this is a negative state and say it needs correction. That would be logical. That would be like learning how to unscrew the lid on the peanut butter. And it certainly would be derived out of perhaps an innate thinking function. I mean, is it really possible to be able to think and not think in terms of recognizing Brahman, recognizing rubbish, recognizing what's good or what's bad? I mean, it's the most basic function of anything that's going to be thinking, is being able to fit things into categories, to say this is different than that. What makes it different? Rubbish, not rubbish. So you could also bend it down into some finer point where, let's say you're an athlete and you're playing a game. You may not want to obey the rules. You may not want to do a lot of things while you're playing the game, but you know that to win the game, these are the things you must do. So clearly, in terms of an opening the jar of peanut butter, teaching somebody, well, this is how you open the jar of peanut butter. You turn it clockwise and pop it open, counterclockwise, and and spin it. And that's the trick to it. They could be pulling on it and grabbing on it and doing all kinds of things. You just say, no, the trick is you just do the simple trick. And it's a simple trick, knowledge of that the goal is this idea of winning, and that winning can't come at a compromise of the rules. And so it's just establishing this idea that you could say, what's a good life? Well, I think Buddha would say that Brahman, or whatever, is a life of hedonism, a life devoted to what do I personally want. That's crap, it's rubbish. A good life is going to be, what did my life do in the world? What was its effect on the machine, the symptoms of the machine? And the goal is to be productive. So, I mean, all I have to do is say the word productive, right? Is the word productive, would the word productive be Brahman? I don't think so. I think the word productive would be, it's just too important a word. It's too sensible a word. It's too connected to the idea of good. This idea that there is a obvious, once you've acknowledged the existence of good and bad, I mean, productive is just increasing the balance, making more good, making less bad. And once you know that's the goal, now you know what the peanut butter you're after is. And then the trick is just learning the spin trick. That the trick is that good and bad doesn't exist in you. You're not the universe. You're not all the good and bad in the universe. All the good and bad is in all these other things. And so what's your effect on all the other things? That's where you're going to find the winning, the goals. So scoring a goal is preventing harm in the world, preventing suffering in the world. That preventing bad. And it's not about bad just for you. It's about bad anywhere it exists. That's logical. So this really is a philosophical. Behavior reduces to understanding. If you don't understand, then you'll try to pry the lid off the peanut butter. If you do understand, you'll logically spin the lid off the peanut butter. So it's about understanding, not reducing it to some sort of, I will convert a principle into a hedonistic principle. No, you don't need to do that. You just have to acknowledge the fact that yes, it's innate within the structure of all organism to have built into it a striving, and it's just merely labeling the striving good. And once you've labeled what you're striving for is good, then you have no problem defining good. Good will be definable because you'll be able to just say where's bad and I will fix it. So what else? And that would just be, yes, it would be a self-esteem thing. It would be an ego thing. You can certainly convert it into emotional necessity. I'm not even quite sure that you have to do that, though. Even in a positive or negative sense. Just the acknowledgement that that's the game, and you know that a rules violation will exit you from the game. Following the rules just seems like that's just part of winning the game. It's part of the way you win, is to follow the rules. And the rules are, your desires are not going to be your guide. They're just not going to help you at all in terms of figuring how to get this jar open. I don't know if I said that as well as I'd like to have, but I think it's good enough. I have often pointed out that altruism has to be made. You have to make your body move, and to make your body move, you have to affirm an idea. But that affirmation, although it's emotional, it's rational. Like I said, I mean, the personal incentive I would have to say jump on the grenade in the right circumstance to prevent harm to things I consider more valuable than my oneself, that kind of act, okay, would just require understanding. And once you understand, well, that's going to be the rule of scoring the goal. I will score the goal. Yes, I will be sacrificed, but the goal will get scored. The good will be preserved. And once you've recognized that, it's not really a matter of having any necessity of a personal desire. I mean, I think it'd be just silly to call it a personal desire. You don't want to obey the rule, but the rule is the rule, and you know the rule is the only way to win, so you'll do it to win. But I mean, it's so distant from the personal ambition that it's sort of an insult to the knowledge to say it's just about the peanut butter. Or whatever the right metaphor is. So anyway, let's play a little bit of this, just see what kind of crack shit this is. It's probably just awful. I'm predicting.
Okay, do a response video to Inmendham, or Inmendham I should say, Inmendham. This is actually quite a good video from him. It's his newest one. There's a lot of good stuff in it. What the fuck, I ought to have hit the button, right? Because he didn't record the tiny chat last night. But I'll stop yabbering and we'll get through the video because I want to get to the meat, and there's a lot of stuff to cover. So
I'll jump in somewhere.
Welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happens YouTube Atheist Community, and
I'm playing this part of no value.
And you can formulate oughts based on goals, and the common goal in sentience is not to suffer, because suffering carries inside it the goal.
Okay, right, but that is just such a superficial philosophical goal, right? Me not suffering is a moron's goal, so that's Brahman, right? I mean, that's just being an idiot. I mean, you're just owned by the strings, the puppet strings. So the idea is to become the puppeteer. The idea is to get behind those motivations and recognize what the real game is. And the real game has absolutely nothing to do with you. It has to do with the game. Okay, the 7 billion human beings, a future that may have 7 trillion humans in it. That's the goal. The goal is all of that welfare that's hanging out there. You're just one tiny little quanta of welfare. So I'm just saying you're already gamed. You're out of the philosophical game if you're saying your goal is to feel good. Your goal is to preserve yourself. You have no philosophical integrity. You're just an animal, if that's what you're saying goals are. I mean, you might as well be a dog.
That kind of odd is...
I mean, even dogs are more psychologically fucked up in the sense that they're owned by the idea of the pack. You know, and so that's why they can be so submissive and obedient and devoted, and they'll jump in the fire for you kind of thing. It's because they're owned by the pack. All right? And I'm just saying we shouldn't be owned by culture. We shouldn't be owned by pride in nation states. We shouldn't be owned by anything but the simple understanding that there's a certain amount of fucking torture that's going to take place, and if we can reduce that amount, that's winning. Period. It's not that complicated. Torture is torture. It doesn't matter what beastie it's in, and you just stop it. If you stop it, you win. You gain points. Your life goes good up. The goodness of your life goes up. You become productive. You become an asset. Your existence becomes a benefit to the universe. And in a sense, if that isn't your ambition, to be a benefit to the universe, you're a fool, a fucktard, and an idiot.
Doing his religious thing, and that's all I can call it. It's, who cares what...
I've seen about this. Wait till it...
I guess my fundamental argument would be, I mean, the most basic argument is, if somebody proposes a theory... let's not do this part. Just jump up.
Tied together with one mind. So, yeah, that's...
Tied together with one mind. I hate that rhetoric.
Experience that matters, right? But it's still a subjective experience. We're not tied together with one mind.
Yeah, well, who cares? Again, what kind of idiot would I need to be to have a string tied to the other person? I'm that stupid. Okay, they have to actually have they can't talk to me without having a tube tied to my ear. I mean, I can't figure out the relationship without them yelling it inside of me. Their existence has to actually vibrate something inside of me for me to acknowledge it. I mean, this is just such a fucking dodge. I don't need to feel their fucking pain to acknowledge their fucking pain. It's just so fucking stupid to say I have to feel it. I do not have to feel it.
So, yeah, that's...
Or come up with some other explanation, like somehow my feelings are part of a matrix. And
serious intellectual conversation with that premise. So,
let's see what this crap
an audience that at least accepts we're not in a fucking matrix, right? I mean, who are these people that are holding you back? I think they're trolls, because honestly, someone's just been a pet.
Well, frankly, you're holding me back, okay? This whole fucking having to have some stupid argument about, we need to feel each other's pain to acknowledge each other's pain. What the fuck nonsense is that? This whole idea that it's subjective because it happens to subjects. Yes, so fucking what? Alright, I mean, individual dishwashers wash dishes. Who the fuck cares? There's a certain amount of dishes getting washed. What the fuck does it matter what dishwasher's doing it? It's not about the fucking dishwasher. It's about what the dishwasher is doing. It's about what we are doing consciously. That's what matters. What we're experiencing. The experiences are the only thing we're doing here that really matters. I mean, the gases flying out of us and the flesh and all this other crap is completely irrelevant. This subjective crap. We are making something. Conscious reality. That's what we're making. That's the product of our existence, the only significant and meaningful product of our existence. If we were not conscious and just mechanically did all the shit we do, okay, but never felt anything, what would it matter? It would still be subjective, it'd still be all this crap, but it wouldn't make a goddamn dime's worth of difference. Oh, shit.
They wouldn't actually have a serious intellectual conversation with that premise. So don't, don't suffer fools gladly.
Yeah, whatever this means, right? Well, why the fuck am I suffering you then? Because in my opinion, as soon as somebody starts talking about the fact that human beings are individuals and they are subjectively, individually creating feelings, well, fucking duh. That's not the point. The point is what they're making by being alive is the thing that has value. The consciousness has value. Who cares that it's held in a vessel? Who cares it's in a vase? They're flowers in a vase. You're going to pretend the flowers aren't flowers anymore because they're in a vase. Well, so fucking what they're in a vase? Big fucking deal.
Not the same as valuing the other pawns unless the pawn already value, or I should say, I don't want to say value as verb, but value as noun. But even value as noun, the suffering is still, the value as noun is still intrinsic to the suffering, which is still by definition a subjective experience.
Yeah, well, fuck you. By definition, it is not. By definition, it's a real experience. By definition, its subjectivity is irrelevant to its reality. The fact that my name is Gary and his name was Jim and say we were identical in every other respect, are you really going to tell me that this matters? I'm Gary, he's Jim, that matters? I mean, this is a fucking idiotic argument. It's fucking idiotic. Why do I have to explain the fact that it just goddamn doesn't matter? You want to pretend it matters which zebra gets eaten by the lion? That the event isn't the fact that the lion is eating a zebra and the zebra is suffering? That's not important. No, it's which zebra is doing it somehow is important. I'm afraid not. Fuck.
It would only be, the goal would be points for the whole game, so to speak, if each of the players had the motivation and that was the goal, and they had...
Yeah, it's not the motivation, it's the knowledge, frankly. Again, this isn't something that's going to be innately motivated in you like a dog, its devotions to its pack. Human beings aren't dogs, okay? They don't have a pack mentality. Is strong a one anyway. They have a familial nepotism thing, but again, that's Brahmin. Your nepotism is Brahmin. Your fucking stupid, idiotic psychological attachments are crap. They're rubbish. They're shit. The only thing that really matters is the fact that there's conscious experiences taking place, and you can either positively affect the volume of those experiences, or you can negatively affect the volume of those experiences. There's going to be a net effect. And you're either going to be a contributor in a positive or a negative way, and that's going to define your fucking existence. You're either going to be pouring black water into the stream, or you're going to be pouring clear water into the stream. But it's the color of the stream that's going to goddamn matter. You don't matter. You're fucking irrelevant. Okay? The you shit is just bullshit. We're not one mind, but we're no mind. It just goddamn doesn't matter what vessel is creating the stream water.
That is the goal, and they were motivated towards that goal if they wanted to play the whole game, but obviously people don't want to play the whole game.
Well, then, obviously the whole point is that the whole argument I've been making the whole time I've been on the internet is, yeah, that most people are assholes, and they don't even understand ethics, okay? They're stupid motherfucking cunts, and that's why I'm making these goddamn videos. It's not because they're right, it's because they're fucking wrong. Newsflash. That's the whole fucking argument, that they've got ethics wrong. Jesus. You haven't noticed that? Fuck. Yeah, they're evil. Okay, they're stupid, and it's made them evil. They're polluting. They're destructive. They're causing harm. Anyway, I really don't have any interest in dragging this all out, and I probably should play his video properly. But it's just this, he's just going to keep sliding back to this silly argument that the subjectivity is somehow relevant, and somehow this is about what we individually value. What we individually value, the argument is there's a truth. I don't care about your values. I don't care about his values. If you jackasses are going to argue about what soap opera is better or what video game is better, I mean, well, what the fuck? That's just irrelevant. I'm looking for the goddamn truth. Okay, and I'm saying there's a truth out there. And it just seems that you assholes are resigned to the fact that you have no interest in finding it and no interest in arguing it. But I'm saying there's a truth. You either think Superman's better than Batman or you don't, and you're either going to make an argument proving it. But this fucking idiotic, let's all just agree to have our subjective definition of right and wrong, it's just fucking idiotic. There's a right and there's a wrong, and I think it's completely based on whether or not you're torturing shit or not. How much torture you're creating seems a pretty goddamn good standard for right and wrong. Yeah, I think you got it wrong. If there's more torture in the world when you're done doing whatever the fuck you're doing, then I think you're doing it goddamn wrong. Fuck. Shit. Till next time.